If you had followed the safe path, like graduate school and stable job after that, obviously that will make you a really good daughter in your parents' eyes. But which part of you do you think that would die a little bit inside?
When I got the internship, I had a big like personal struggle. I was very
Mm.
introvert, and I knew that like if I want to become more successful in career, I should become more extroverted. So I started to be a waitress at night at a really popular live house that
A
I
waitress.
a waitress. So in the daytime, I go to the startup. At night, I go work as a waitress from 7 to maybe 1 or 2 a.m.
Today we have Dee, a dynamic entrepreneur and product leader with an incredible track record of joining and contributing to multiple unicorn startups, including Zhihu, Keep, Airbnb, and Zoomcar. Born and raised in China, Dee's journey has taken her from Beijing to Shanghai, Yunnan, Singapore, and now Japan, where she continues to innovate in the startup world. Dee's story is one of resilience, intuition, and breaking free from traditional expectations, whether it was navigating the intense pressures of Chinese education system or forging her own path in the global tech scene. Join us as we dive deep into her experience.
Morning, Dee. Welcome to the show. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Dee, and I was grew up in China, and then went to Beijing for my university. And the first two jobs, stayed there for about 9 years. Moved to Shanghai, and then during COVID, I moved to Yunnan, Dali for a year. Then moved to Singapore for a job for a few months, and now I'm here in Japan. I was building my own startup, and now I'm joining another startup, helping their scaling their global product.
I heard that you joined 4 startups and all of them became unicorn. Was that correct?
Yeah. I mean, like, I joined some of them later, but like, I discovered them quite early. So I was really happy about that.
What are those startups? Tell us about it.
So the first one is called Zhihu. Basically, if you are familiar with Quora, it's the Chinese version of Quora. It was founded in 2011, and now I believe it's a public company. The second one is Keep. It's the biggest fitness platform in China. I was as their first product manager. They also went public in Hong Kong, I think last year or a year ago. And the third one was my dream company, is Airbnb. I discovered Airbnb in 2011. The fourth one is called Zoomcar. They're also a public company right now, and they're from India. They're a car sharing platform.
Cool. That's really amazing. I mean, a lot of people won't even get to work for one unicorn or before they become unicorn. You work for 4. So clearly that is not a coincidence. Do you have a strategy or you kind of just bump into it or you just go with your guts? Like how did you do it?
Most of the time, I feel like I went with my guts. As long
Yeah.
as the new product is creating huge value for consumers, especially creating value for their daily life, helping them become better themselves, I would think like a good opportunity. And plus, on the top of that, the product itself has great taste. I'm all in.
Right. Cool. So let's just maybe dive into a bit of how you grew up because you grew up in China, you mentioned. And when you grew up in China, what did being a good kid look like? And when did you first realize that that wasn't making you happy?
Yeah, you probably know as well, being a good kid for Asian parents, especially Chinese parents, the standards is to be having good grades, performing.
Hmm.
Beyond that, I don't think they care that much, like whether you do sport or not, have had hobbies or not. So I was like that until I went to high school, where I went to like a kind of top high school in a nearby town, and top 60 students among 1,400. Because in my year, I think that was the peak population of millennials.
Mm.
Our parents had a lot of siblings. That's the context. So we had a lot of people in the school. But I was always in the bottom in the first 60 students. I realized that
Right.
I wasn't that good. I was only a small countryside, a middle school, elementary school. But once I stepped out of the zone, I was not.
Right. And just to give it a
Yeah.
little bit context, because I think that
Yeah.
in China we have the zodiac sign, right? And I think that there's a lot of dragon babies. Like what year were you born in? Because I think
I
that determines a lot.
was
Yeah.
horse. But yeah, you're right. Like babies, and I think snake and the horse were like the top 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people wanted to have like dragon babies or like, I don't know, horse babies or something like that. So that if you're unfortunately born into these years, then that year of like competition of exams will be a lot more fierce than other years.
For my age was 750,000 just for my
Yeah.
province. So that's like a very fierce competition.
Yeah. So you're saying that you realized that, you were a really good student from, I guess, your town, your city where you grew up, and then you went to a better school, perhaps in a bigger city.
Yeah.
And you also went into almost like elite class of that school. And then you realize you're not as good as you thought that you were because the competition is even stronger at the time, right? So how did that make you feel and what did you do about it?
I truly felt terrible myself every day because life is all about studying in high school. And I didn't know what are the other options I could take to make myself stand out or like move forward a bit. There was no way. So I feel really terrible about it. And then I came to the conclusion that maybe this is not my game. My game, taking exams and having, maybe I'm just not good at it. Because sometimes, when the teachers review the exams, I was like, this is what it actually means. I really didn't understand what they asked about in the exam. That's why I couldn't give the perfect answer and get a score.
Okay, so maybe just a little bit backstory of how Chinese education system works. It's a bit like Singapore, but like still very different, right? So like from elementary school to junior high, from junior high school to high school to university, you always have these like provincial level exams that filter out students so that if your grade isn't top of the top at every single level, that means you can't go into the top school. So that and the exam is very all encompassing, right? So it's not just subjects you can choose and pick from. So there's two streams, especially in high school, arts and science. And art is like Chinese, English, history, geography, and politics. And for science is biology, physics, chemistry, math, etc. So if you choose a stream to go into, you don't really have any other options. It's not like, okay, hey, I'm good in history and also physics. Can I do both? Like you can't really do that, right? So if you realize that at a certain point you weren't good at exams, like that's it for a lot of Chinese kids because it doesn't matter whether they're excellent at performing or they're excellent at oil painting, you're not going to go to like the top universities. So how, like as a kid, like assume that you are like 16, 17 at the time, if you already realized that about you and you were still in that system, what's your coping mechanism and how did you then want to survive it? If you realize that you were in the wrong game for the person you were.
I think survival was the right word for it. I was really just trying to survive because for my class, our schedule was so tight. I was in school and I live with other 11 girls in the same dorm. And we need to take care of our
11 girls. Wait, 11 girls.
11 girls. Yeah, it's like a bunker bed. And we need to take care of ourselves in terms of just like living, right? Like food, laundry, shower, simple things like that.
Yeah.
But for us, we had like 20 minutes break for breakfast, dinner, and then after all day of study. And our schedule is from 6:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. So every day you only have like 8 hours of sleep. You have like it's off. And besides that, it's all study and then nonstop. Every week we have 2 hours off. Saturday afternoon. And every month we have 1 day off to go back home and see our parents.
Yeah. It sounds like a jail instead of a school.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Survival was the right word. It was like really difficult to catch up with often studying already. But then I also feel really lost because I didn't know what it means to me personally. What it means to like a better university or like a worse university. What it means to have a good score having a good score and having a good job in the future. It's like there are a lot of puzzles, but like in my school, no one taught you about anything about that.
Yeah.
Like what life is like in universities, why you should go for good universities beyond the name, the job. So that's, I feel like I really wish the teachers have taught me a little bit more because my parents didn't go to university. They can't teach me that.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, I'll jump in with a bit of my story as well, just because I was also born and raised in China, and so I went to a school called Hangzhou Foreign Language School. It was probably one of the best ones. The admission rate was probably 6% or less, and I fucked up my exam. So what happened was that for that school, from junior high school, because it got two departments, right? The first one is junior high, the second one is high school. So for that particular school, you don't need it to go to the provincial level exam to advance from junior high to high school. You can just take your internal exam and then you can go direct to their one department to the other. It's exempted from all the rules, right? Because it's like an elite school. And I fucked up that exam. And long story short, I discovered that my best friend was lesbian and she abandoned me for another girl. So, okay, it was a boarding school too. And she discovered she's lesbian. She then wanted to pursue another girl. Her conclusion was that she needed to abandon me to be with that girl. And overnight, I didn't have a friend anymore. Like this person I was with for 2 years, that she was gone and she was now hanging out with another girl. And she didn't want to talk to me. And I was like 14 years old. I struggled so much with that, right? Because I was like, what the fuck just happened? My whole world just collapsed and I didn't know how to deal with it because she didn't tell anybody she was lesbian. It took me 20 years to try to figure that out. And I was just like, I was thinking, was that my problem? You know, like, was that like something I did? But then we got along so well, right? So like, I just couldn't know. I didn't know how to think about it. So as a result of that, that affected everything I was doing. And I couldn't focusing on the exam. I couldn't focus on anything. So as a result, I failed the exam. That was so crucial. And I had half a year to get my shit together so what happened was that once you got eliminated from that exam internally, now you need to take the provincial level exam to go to any other school in Hangzhou, but that one, the school I was in. And in the meantime, the ones that got eliminated, right? So I think like 20% of us got eliminated. And then we needed to stay together with 80% that was advanced, right? So think about a Hunger Game, except that you died, but you still
Sounds
need
like a Hunger Game.
Yeah, and then so I remember like they all thought we were dumb. So like all of a sudden, right?
Yeah,
like
there was a lot of pressure.
We were equal with them. Like in any way, we were classmates, whatever. But then once we're eliminated, then they looked at us as if we were like the dumbest people they've ever met. And just because we didn't pass that exam, right? And then it was a lot of pressure because my test score, when I first got into that eliminated class, I was only able to go to a technical school because I was so bad at it. I was so distracted from study. And then so I had only a few months, right? And then so I was studying and also hanging out with these students. And I realized a lot of them came from broken families, right? So it's not just like they're bad in grades or whatnot. It's just that they were not focusing on study for 2-3 years. Maybe their parents are divorced. One girl, her dad died of a car accident and she never got over it. And as a result of that, she started to have bad habits and she started to like steal things from other people. I'm pretty sure there's a phenomena of that in psychology, but then I think she just wanted to have more control of her life and she didn't know how to do it. And then as a result, like she wasn't doing well in school. She wasn't doing well in her personal life. She didn't have a lot of friends, but it's all because like she wasn't able to get over the fact that her dad died before she went to school. So I saw a lot of those things and it really affected me. But as a result of that, actually, I was able to go to another really good high school. And, and I was the only person out of that class that was able to do it. Not to say that, to brag about it, honestly, I feel really bad about it. I think still to this day, I have survival guilt of the whole thing because I felt like all these other students were left behind. And for some reason, I was able to get out. And then I was able to get into another equally good high school and another good university. And in China, like how well you do exams, it's everything. And they don't care about, your personality. You don't even need to have a personality, right? And then so for me, like I needed to just reduce myself, as you said, to survive, right? So in high school, it was also a boarding school, but it was very, very strict. And it was the opposite of what I experienced in junior high, which was a lot more liberal. So as a result of that, again, I was also in a boarding school. We have 4 girls instead of 12 in a dorm. But so every morning I would try to brush my teeth a bit faster than the girl next to me so that I can dash into the classroom and squeeze more time into study because I was number 1 in girls and I wanted to keep it that way. And the competition was so fierce that, like, for example, there's one day I was doing my homework and I turned around. There's another girl just staring at me. She wanted to know what I was doing, what questions was I answering, how was I thinking, because she wanted to know, copy exactly how I was doing. I was the biggest target because you're like number 1 in the girls, right? So the girls were like, I want to be like her. And then so you, as a result of that, you don't have any genuine friends. As a student, as a 16 years old, you get to know the real reality of humanity. You know, that like when you are the target that everybody want to be like you in that system, there's no genuine relationship. You know, like people come close to you because they want to get something out of you. And people who may, you know, the teachers might want to like, they like you. That's because you give them a good score and that score tied into their bonus, right? So like, and if you fall behind a little bit, they don't care about you anymore, right? Because you now don't contribute to whatever KPI that they have. So it's just brutal truth about the system and how it incentivizes people to behave. And I remember I was so cutthroat where I took ACT, so the American University Entrance Exam, and I got into a pretty good American school when I was in grade 11. And I didn't need it to go through Gaokao, right? The Chinese education, the college entrance exam. But I was like, I gotta prove myself because I was a fucking dumb kid when I was 14, 15 years old. People thought I was dumb. Okay, let me prove to them I'm smart. So I'm going to do Gaokao as well. And then I killed myself doing Gaokao. And I got into a really good Chinese university as well. And then, but the thing is, like, that thing haunted me for the last like 10 years because I always felt like I gotta prove to other people. So sorry, long story short, that was my experience. So like, I can really relate to what you went through and how I think that the amount of trauma it left you just from going through these years is crazy. Like you spent your whole life carrying these things.
Yeah, I think 10 years after Gaokao, I still dream about it. Like I dream about falling asleep during the exam and like fuck it up. I'm like, wow. Like although my life is so far away from Gaokao, that moment, that few days, but then it still like haunts me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember after Gaokao, I don't know how you spent your summer because that was the first summer in a long time where you don't need to worry about mock exams or studying. But every single night, I will dream about the exam, right? All sorts of different ways to fuck it up, right? And then you just wake up in sweat. And you're like, thank God I don't need to go through it. There's dreams where I was like, I gotta do this all over again, like another 3 years in high school. And I need to take that exam again. Yeah, but anyway, that was a fun time, you know, when you're as a teenager in China, like you really don't have a childhood.
It was really lonely, right?
It was very lonely. And you're a single child too, you know, like you're a single child, right? I assume.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, and then so you're a single child. You don't have any other siblings. And you gotta just focus on
There was no one to turn to.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, so gosh, that gave me a lot of chill just talking about that experience. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's forget about that. You joined a startup straight out of school, right? In college, instead of doing a master's degree, which, okay, let me clarify again. In China, doing a master's now is like necessary for everyone because the competition is so fierce that if you only have a bachelor's degree, you won't even be able to get a good job most of the time, unless you're from like Peking University or, you know, Tsinghua University, the top one, top two, top three, then you're fucked, right? So what pushed you to take that risk that you didn't go to a master's program?
Yeah, I was just really tired of studying further in the basically same kind of education environment in China, right? So when my parents asked me to like study on a master's exam, I was like, oh, here we go again, another like big exam that's going to determine your life path, basically. And I want to avoid that, right? So I want to understand what my alternatives are. And then I this startup called Zhihu. I was very fortunate to join their user meetup. That with the founder means that convince them that I will join as an intern while I was still doing bachelor's. So then I worked with a very early team, about like 10 people for 1 year, and I really love it. I realized like, wow, this is what I was craving for unconsciously in my life. A diverse group of people that you can learn from, you can have fun. Like we will work so hard. I would like go to like Zhongguancun, that's where our office was at.
It's like a Silicon Valley in
Yes,
Beijing,
Silicon
right?
Valley in Beijing. Yeah, I would go there at like 7 a.m. and I return to my university at 10 p.m. That's how motivated I was. So like that drive completely like has changed, right? And I start to see the energy that was from within myself. And I see like, wow, I could like really learn from like real people, not just students or teachers. You are learning.
Or textbooks.
Exactly. You are learning from someone who has real world working experience, building a product, getting funding or whatsoever, something that you don't understand yet, right?
Mm-hmm. So how did you convince your parents that's what you wanted to do instead of a master's program?
I feel like I didn't try to convince. I just told them like, hey, this is my decision. So I stopped getting money from them. So I feel like I had to tell them like, hey, this is my decision.
Did you think that not getting money from them was able to make you more courageous of making your own decisions and also tell them that that's what you decide to do?
Yeah, at least for me, I thought so. I actually even borrowed money from another friend so that I can stop getting money from my parents. So I can like more independent and be able to make my own decisions and take risks. I think that's right. Because before that, always on a very safe path, right? Even a little bit of the university as well. So I really wanted to 100% make decisions for myself, no matter what it comes after that.
Right. And the fact that you didn't want to take money from your parents, was it because you intuitively knew that if you did that, that they would have a say in your decisions? Like they would wanted to influence it.
Yeah, I feel like that would give them more power to influence my decision.
Right.
Off.
Yeah. I think there's different parents, and some parents they will make it very well known to you that if you take their money, you'd better to use it on their term and you should not waste it, right? And the wasting is like anything to do with whatever you wanted to do with your life. I never had that feeling from my parents. Luckily, they're just very supportive in general. But did you think that's also something like your parents were doing, like, there's a string attached if you were to get the resources?
There was nothing like that in my family because my parents, all my grandparents, they're farmers. So my parents, they started to work in the town instead of being a farmer for the first time ever in the whole family. So actually, like, my family didn't save much money at the point when I went to university. So like for me, I also didn't want to take more from them in the future. Like if I can make my own money, find a way to make the cash flowing, I think that would be the best for everyone.
I see. So in a way, it's a blessing in disguise where if like that you can't get a lot from them anyway, and then you might need to support them. So you might as well just, to be on the path that you think can best do that. So if you had followed the safe path, like graduate school and stable job after that, obviously that will make you a really good daughter in your parents' eyes. But which part of you do you think that would die a little bit inside?
I think this is a very good question, because I sometimes reflect on it as well. Like, what would I lose? So there is another part of story you probably haven't heard yet. When I got an internship, I had a big personal struggle. I was very introverted. And I knew that if I want to become more successful in career, I should become more extroverted. So I started to be a waitress at night at a really popular live house that
Waitress.
A waitress. So in the daytime, I go to the startup. At night, I go work as a waitress from 7 to maybe 1 or 2 a.m.
That's crazy. Wait, so you go to work at 7 a.m. and then you finish your waitress work at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. What was your drive behind that? Because
I wanted to change myself. Like being a waitress, then you have to talk to people, right? You have to open talking to customers, talking to bartenders, talking to others. I feel like it was a really good opportunity for me to become a little bit more extroverted. But what I didn't expect is that I actually made a lot of friends when I was there because that bar is called like Jianghu in Beijing. It's still around. It attracts a lot of foreigner as well. Get to a very diverse group of friends at my age compared to a lot of Chinese. So I think that was a big change that I had that probably a lot of people didn't have in China because I never traveled abroad. I studied English as everyone else did growing up in China. But then with
Which
this,
was okay. Let me just give people a little bit background check. When you study English as everyone else does in China, that is okay. That is basically nothing, right? Because English
Yeah.
teachers in China are horrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible. They don't know how to pronounce anything, and they speak like complete Chinglish, and they can barely put a sentence together. And there's no oral exams in China, which means that like they don't care about how you speak English at official level, right? And I think that as far as I know, that it gets even worse now. And even for exams, test your grammar, right? And like spelling, all these things, which makes you really, really good technically. Like you can see in a word like apple and be like, oh, there's a misspell there somewhere. But you're not going to be able to use it practically just because that's how the system's set up.
Yeah. That was really interesting because on English exams from like middle school to university, I was so good at listening and speaking all the time, always a perfect score. And then I really, the reading and whatever, like filling out part, I just couldn't choose the right word or what that paragraph is trying to express.
Yeah. And this actually brings a very interesting point because I think that you are the kind of person who's very good at real life. Like if you see anything that has an application in real life, like how you can use the knowledge that I think you're really good at like bringing that to the surface. Like you're really good at learning it, right? Because you see the connection and you're like, oh, this is how I can use it. But I think that, like, as you know, because this is just what I heard, I felt like, but if it's something that's too abstract and it's only exists on textbooks, like, I don't think you would have that motivation as much to study it, right? And one thing I wanted to share, and I don't know if you agree, is in China, it's very polar opposite. Like, it's very polarized, where, like, from age maybe 7 to 18, you lived in a very theoretic world, right? Where you know, like you were just studying all the time. And you're not even questioning whether these knowledge can be used in the future. You're not even thinking about what kind of person I want to be or how big the world is or how does the world operate. But then by the age when you're 18, you went to university, right? It's all about practical. It's all about application. Like you're thrown into the society and it's just like, now survive. So like, and it rewards completely different behavior. So like, if you're like a super smart kid in school and you are like a 状元, right? You're like top #1 of your province or whatnot, and everybody worships you. But then you don't know how to survive in this dog eat dog world and make money or create whatever that is, right? You will feel so lost, and it's like such a big cognitive dissonance because before you're like #1 and everybody worships you, and now you're like nobody, and then you see all these like bad students, quote unquote, being better than you, right? They're like try to like found unicorns or whatever, right? So I think that is just like such an interesting contrast.
Yeah, and I wonder how it's shifting today, right? Because when we grew up, there was not much technology, and the school probably doesn't allow us to use phones at all. And the phones back then was like Nokia or something. You can only like send SMS. But nowadays, I see my observation in China, in like kids go to elementary schools, some of them have iPhones. In the school or whatsoever, but I'm sure like they can access to a lot more information than the time we went to school, and
For
maybe
sure.
that's like secretly influencing how they view the world,
100%.
influencing their decisions. Actually.
Yeah, 100%. It's like whatever you perceive, right? It's still smaller than the education system. So the system is very rigid. It's a box. But now that the only thing that's different is that now you know what is out there. So I think that creates a lot of tension between what they know and what they're seeing. So now I go back and talk to my teachers back in the day, and they're still teaching, right? They told me there's a lot of depression in students these days in China. People, they try to cut themselves. People, new students who they would rather to stay in the car than getting to the classroom. They don't want to go into the classroom. I think that it's almost like there's that level of helplessness there, because now if you don't know, like your ignorance is your shield, right? It shields you from a lot of pain, but now you know, and you still can't do it because the system limits you unless you have a lot of money resources that you can get out of the system. But if you don't, and you know there's something better out there, then I think it's even more painful.
I think another interesting change I observed when I was back in a couple of months before is that like technical school that you just mentioned are becoming more popular, especially in areas like people like chase like top university anymore. Instead, they go to technical schools. And I'm like, wow, the society is really changing rapidly.
Well, they needed to, right? Because, you make so much money. Like, I remember my parents needed to fix their AC, and they were like, oh, we pay 1,000 yuan for this person to show up for like 30 minutes. I was like, what the fuck? I mean, that is a Western wage, And they're like, yeah, and they're so in demand. We can't even get them. And, whatever they say, whatever price they need, we'll give it to them. So yeah, of course, like, why do you want to compete with all these people for like the job that you're going to work at 996 anyway? You might as well just get an easier job that makes you more money, right?
Yeah, I'm glad there's ability in this direction now. I think it's really cool. Like if everyone just become white collar, I don't think it's a very healthy society, right?
It's not. Okay. So sorry. I cut you off completely. You said that you were a waitress at night, and I guess the question is, if you had followed the safe path, what part of you that you think would die a little bit?
Really understanding what the world is like, right? If I follow the same path, I think I will have a relatively smaller and stable like friends and network who have probably followed a similar path. In the end, the information you get, the insights you can get, the news you are going to hear, and the people are going to be within like a small circle or let's say bubble. But then if you have friends from like literally everywhere in the world, and then you hear different stories, you understand what is really going on with their own culture, their society. I think that's really, really invaluable, especially when you are in your 20s. So I think, that would be the answer. Like that part of experience will like definitely die or like never exist.
Right.
A good contrast is me versus my top high school classmates, I mean, I think probably 40 of them went to like really top universities, and probably like out of the 60 students, 50 of them probably got like master's degree and PhD, like really typical and successful students, in my opinion.
On paper.
Yeah, on paper. But I mean, and then now I look at our own path. It's just like the way I live is just so. Most of them also have kids right now, so their life is very stable. They have a pretty good job in a lot of like state-owned academies or companies. They don't really travel abroad that much.
Okay, so here's
their
another
English is not as good.
Yeah, so here's another I guess context I want to give out. So in China, the best jobs nowadays, I believe, are like, if you work in a state-owned company, widely accepted best jobs are like state-owned companies and maybe government or something. And because most startups still die, right? I think they try to rejuvenate the private sector, but the private sector hasn't been doing really well. So that a lot of people, like the definition of success for Chinese people is stability more than anything.
Yeah, especially for our generation, right? When we grew up, it's like our parents probably they just started to have stability, and they definitely want to realize that expectations in their children, which is us, to have a really stable job in a big company and make sure like you retire quickly. That's what they want for you.
Yeah. They want the structure, right? They want the you have done all these they just want that paper. They don't really care about, and I think it's not like I'm trying to blame them. I think they probably didn't care about how they are feeling inside either, right? It's not like they have the tools. So they just don't know there's substance that's existent behind the surface. like having that structure is their safety net, right? So they want you to have it too.
Yeah, my parents, they were not very well educated. So I think their definition of a lot of things are just were created inside their like knowledge circle, right? I can't really blame them. Their opinions are really influenced by whatever is talked on the Chinese internet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they try to at least provide like finance and like a good life for us.
Yeah, whatever they think that they need to do, for sure. So
Yeah.
did you hit a moment where you thought like maybe they were right and maybe I should have played it a little bit safe?
Actually never.
Never. Okay.
Yeah. Like it's never really on my mind. What is on my mind a lot is like, is this fun?
Yeah.
Does it like, is it genuine? Is it like creating connection? There are a lot of like other questions, but like safe is really not there for me to consider. Safe is for like old people, I think.
Okay, well you're a true rebel then. You didn't even have a rebel moment, that's just who you are. Okay, so what's one thing you admire? So okay, so again, rewind a little bit. So you lived in China until 20, but even in 2020, you were in Yunnan, right? Okay, so again, context here. Yunnan is a digital nomad city, right, or province in
Probably,
China.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much like a Bali, right, of China. In fact, we call Dali, which is
Yeah.
California, yeah, like we call Dali, which is a city in Yunnan, California, because there's a lot of digital nomads there, just like
Yeah.
California. Well, I guess, California, there are a lot of nomads. They're just tech people.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, you moved to Singapore, and then now you live in Japan, right?
Yeah, correct.
So, what's one thing you admire and one thing you struggle with in Japanese, Chinese, and Singaporean culture?
Yeah, so I moved abroad from China at the year of 32, which is like kind of late for people who want to move. Because here in Japan, I actually meet a lot of people who came here to study in high school, university, and then stay here. But it's good that like now I'm more like mature and I can actually compare the life and make the best decision. I stayed in Singapore for like 3 months and then I left. So that was a very
Yeah.
quick decision. When I moved there, I actually, for the first time in my life, I bought furniture. In the past, I never buy furniture because I live in a very minimum way. In Singapore, I bought a TV. I bought a standing desk.
You want to settle down?
Yeah, I was like, oh, Singapore is the place. I really like it when I visited, and the PR is very attractive. The job itself is good. But then I got bored really quickly. I realized that like, wow, it's not for me for now. It's a really great place to get things done and build your network. But then I feel like I still want something for my personal life, going hiking, going diving, or just like get to nature very easily. I think that's very important for me personally. Singapore, and I got a really good piece of advice. You can always come back to Singapore. I'm like, yeah, true. Like I can always come back if other places don't work out, right? So then I moved to Japan. So it has been almost 2 years for me in Japan now. I really admire the relentless commitment to craft and details that Japanese people have. Amazing. You see so many shops and restaurants that are like 40-year, 50-year, or like 200-year-old, right? Never see that. In Singapore, I don't know, probably not as much either.
No.
So that attention is just like amazing, the very well-known craftsmanship, right?
Yeah, but also history, right? You feel like you are watching, you are being a part of a story, a history.
Yeah, and people really take pride in that like day-to-day work. But then they are also very risk aversion. They are like, especially compared to Chinese people who are like a lot of hustlers, right? They are quite ambitious. They are quite fearless.
They're entrepreneurial.
More about getting things done and pivoting and trying and seizing opportunities.
Yeah.
I see that change happening in Japan nowadays because the government 5-year startup planned from a few years ago. I just went to the Sushi Tech a couple of days ago to see like how the ecosystem.
Sushi Tech? Wait, what is Sushi Tech?
It's like a tech convention plus like conference.
Oh,
it's
Sushi Tech. They call it Sushi Tech. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes I struggle with the indirectness that could exist in Japanese culture. Versus me being a Chinese who is more about like speed. Let's be direct and straightforward and get things done, right?
Yeah.
like balance a little bit more, which is actually good for me because a lot of times, so I was in the Chinese startups in like the golden age of Chinese startups. There was a lot of like rapid growth. Like when I was at Keep, we grew from 1 million users to 30 million users within a year. So there was a lot of speed
That's crazy.
in there. Yeah, sometimes like chaos. And now like in Japan, I feel like I start to learn to like balance both a little bit more and think for long term a little bit more, like short term transactional thinking that I grew up with. And then in Singapore, I really admire the efficiency and transparency, the global mindset. That's what I really like Singapore. Because here in Japan, you do a lot of things offline.
Honestly, think that you were very easy on Singapore. It almost feels like you're like, oh, I don't want to say too much bad. Okay, just what are the things you struggle with Singapore? Because obviously you stayed here only for 3 months, even though you want to settle down. So what were the things like, that wasn't working out for you other than nature?
Yeah, there is just not much to do at weekends if I don't leave the country.
Yeah.
So if you have the right job opportunity that can allow you to do a lot of business trips from Singapore, I think that would be like the perfect balance. You get a breeze from outside of Singapore and then come back and rest a little bit. I think that would be perfect. For me, it was just the good. It wasn't the right opportunity in terms of job, and then I was a little bit too lazy to switch to another job immediately. I feel like I time to make the right decision for myself. And Singapore, although everything is like so easy and efficient, but I feel like I didn't love it yet.
Yeah. So first of all, I've been here since 2017. So it has been 8 years.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like I constantly want to get out of here. I think I grew to be okay with it. And there's a lot of inner dialogues that I need to have with myself to be okay with it. And I think Singapore is a place where it's a bit hard. I just think this is what this is what I believe. I think it's a little bit hard for Chinese people to get into unless you are really much in the family mode. Just because I was also in North America for a long time before this, right? And I got to see just a contrast in between all these Eastern and Western culture. And I thought that Singapore would be a perfect place because it's, amalgamation of East and West. And after I came here, I realized they had their own unique culture. And I think the biggest challenge for me was really, I think it wasn't really aligned with my own value system. Initially, I didn't know I didn't know how to put words into my feelings. And then after a while, I realized that's the core tension. So you know how when you're growing up in China, as you mentioned, right, you get to see the country really developing from a place where it's like, West African level in the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
To when you're in the like everything was booming. And before I grew up in bicycles, you didn't see a lot of cars and, pianos and stuff. Yeah, and then to a place where you have this mobile first economy and you can get everything from Taobao and it will arrive within a day or 2 days, right? And it's just fascinating to see the amount of change that can happen in like a decade or two. And you see so many people getting rich because they have that hustle mindset. And it taught me a lot about my own autonomy. And the fact that the sky was the limit in China, that you can do anything you want if you put your mind into, and you can make anything a success if you want to. And I think that's so deeply ingrained in me, where I'm like, I don't ever want to give out that part of myself. And when I was in the States and Canada, it was the same, right? So it's like, American had I think Americans or Chinese have a lot in common, more than they want to admit at this point. But then that entrepreneurship is also a part of American culture, an American dream. But it's also like they're also entrepreneurial in terms of culturally, right? So they express themselves freely, it's almost like I saw that part where in China, like there was a lot of freedom economically. And then I went to North America. There's a lot of freedom culturally, right? So I became more and more free. And I came back to Singapore. It's like reality check, like now you gotta be contained. And then this is the rules. This is things you need to do. You can't do. This is the way to live your life. And to me, that was just against everything I believed in. Until that point, I was just like, I mean, fuck you, right? Like, this is me, and you're not here to change me. Like, who
I
are
live
you to
in
change
Japan.
me? Yeah, exactly. And then it's just so I think that like it's a great place for people to have a stable life and accumulate wealth.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very safe. It's very safe for kids. Great infrastructure. Everything works. I think in terms of a human development, if you want to self-actualize, I constantly tell myself that in Singapore, it's a bit hard to self-actualize. It's not because you can't. It's because the structure doesn't support it, right? You don't have a lot of great designers or, like if you look around, there are a lot of culture. There are a lot of people who are taking any risks, to be honest. And you don't get to learn from watching these people and be like, oh, it's actually okay for me to take risks. Oh, this is what I believe in. I can actually act on what I believe more than I wanted to act on taking, which is money or status or something. And like, it actually feels better, right? If I stand behind my belief and I don't care about all this materialistic stuff, because at the end of the day, they don't really matter as much as belief. Like that intangible side of humanity is completely missing in Singapore. So to me, that is the thing that I struggle the most with. And I needed to come to terms with it for, in the last few years.
How did you manage to do that?
I think it's to have that strong sense of self. It's like, I think that it's just like, we never wanted to learn hard lessons, right? Because it costs you a lot emotionally. But once you do learn a lesson the hard way, it stays with you. So I think that before I tried to constantly get from the environment and be like, like I would blame the environment I was in, like, oh, why did you guys not make an effort to speak English, right? Because Singlish is a bit hard to understand. And, or but like, why are you guys not thinking for yourself? Like I would blame the society, the environment. But then like at some point I realized Singapore existed before I came in and Singapore will exist after I leave. Like this place is not to blame. It's how my relationship with this place, right? That I need to change. And in order to change it, I need to know, why am I upset? So like, what's the reasons why I still feel the way? Like, what are the things I still don't accept, right? And what are the things I try to get from the environment that I can't give to myself? And what are the values I have? And what are the ways I can get the values met, stay in this place or travel around? So it's to know that the universe of mine, like Crystal, around, it's actually revolving around Crystal, right? It's not like I'm trying to, make this universe a perfect universe for me. Is that I am in the middle of my universe. How can I utilize everything around me so that I can make the universe the best one for me?
Yeah, I totally feel that. I think I didn't give myself and Singapore long enough time because the context is that I wanted to end the job that time. And then I think once you end the job, your EP is gonna expire in some like month.
A month, yeah.
Yeah, then that means like I have to find a job really quickly. And then I was worried that like maybe I'll repeat the same mistake of accepting a job too soon. That might be not good for me, So like better that I can take my time and figure things out. So
yeah, no, I think you did, the best you could at the time, right? Like for me, I just didn't have an option because I, married and, my husband's in Singapore. Like I needed to just sit with it and suffer through and be like, I'm so unhappy. What are the ways to make myself happy by not changing much externally? And if I were single, like I would definitely have done what you have done, right? Because that's that's the easiest and fastest way, to be honest. Okay, I want to say that just dive a little bit deeper into the Japanese culture. So people think that Japan is a peaceful dream. What's the reality really like, especially when it comes down to money, ambition, and being foreign there?
Yeah, Japan is a great place to live. It's very clean, same as Singapore, right? People are very polite. The services you get here are very good, very low crime. Public transportations are amazing. So I think when you are visiting Japan, you can really feel like this is so amazing compared to a lot of countries, right? But then I think the reality is a little bit different for a resident here, especially if you are a foreigner, because you are trying to tap into the local citizen system, right? You need to start to rent a place, get a bank card, get phone numbers, and a lot of like administrative administrative things done. It's just like endless queuing offline, filling out papers and all.
Yeah.
The bigger part is that I've been reflecting recently is that like between Japan and Singapore, how come that like the talent in Singapore are actually really high quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
From their own country gathering together in Singapore. But in Japan, the reality is that like the salary hasn't risen for the last 20 or 30 years, although like the price of things has been going up recently. So the talent are relatively cheap here, although it still attract a lot of like immigrants, and Japan overall is become more and more diverse. But it's just like not there yet to create something that has like huge value. And also if you compare like Japan to US, like US, I was thinking like US does really track people from all around the world. So it's a really big melting point with like different stories and opinions from different backgrounds. But in Japan, that diversity is not there yet. And I think that's like limiting some of the growth and innovation. Japan is very good at innovating in some of the industrial spaces. They have like amazing cars. They have a lot of deep tech technology, electronics and things so on. But I think in order to like have a bigger, if you want to build something amazing for global markets, Japan could be like a place where you build your team, but it's just not there yet. You can't move very fast. All the like papers you have to fill out, all the procedures and flows and rules you have to follow.
Right.
In Japan, which is very, very important. It's not the place to make money, but like if you are tired of your home country, you think it's unsafe, it's not clean, too many crimes, maybe Japan is the place to live.
Yeah. Wait, so you're saying that you said that it's good place to build a team. You mean that but then you also said the talents is not there in Japan.
Right. I mean, the talent quality is there, but like
Yeah.
diversity.
Okay.
And salaries are low. So if you are thinking about building your own startup, I think it's a much better place compared to Singapore. But like,
how about China then? How about China? Don't you think China is even a better place to build a team?
I do think so, especially for engineers.
Yeah.
But then like nowadays, I think the global market, the geopolitics is a little bit different. If you have your like tech stack or like staff in China, it's just not that good for longer term.
Hmm.
I met some like founders in Japan. They have a lot of engineers who moved from China to Japan.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's interesting. Basically, so let's just say, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
if you're a startup and you're a startup in Asia, maybe you have a Chinese founder, and they were like, okay, we wanted to build a global startup, and we wanted to like one day got listed in New York Stock Exchange or whatnot. Building in China will be a risk because that will be perceived very badly now. So let's move our engineers out of China, and you can choose and pick whether it's Singapore or Japan. But in Singapore, you will pay them more, right? And you might as well just move them to Japan. That is the logic. Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of calculation, a lot of math to be done.
Yeah.
Japan, the salary is quite low, but then the tax for corporate and individuals are really high, especially compared to Singapore. So I'm curious how the decision will be made.
So you're saying that retention is high, but the salary is low. And is that a foreigners or is that local?
I checked the JDs here and I asked friends and all. I feel like what's the conversion rate between SGD and the Japanese yen nowadays?
It's 1 to 111.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the salary could be like 1/3 of Singapore.
One
Like,
third.
that's how I feel. Because I got, yeah, I got headhunters in Singapore sometimes, and they would tell me like the salary range. I'm like, wow, like, and now I hear that I feel like in Japan, unless I'm 40-year old, I can't make that money.
Wow. Okay, but like how about the living expense? Is it much cheaper to justify that?
If you compare the living cost or like, for example, like dining in restaurant, and the net income, I feel like it's quite expensive. That's how I feel. Because we actually pay a lot of tax and rent and all that. But in Singapore, I know like things can be pricey, but then the tax is like much lower and the salary is much higher. So maybe in the end it will be like justified.
Yeah. Albeit it's getting, more and more expensive here in Singapore too, right? Like, everywhere you go. I think It seems like there might be some kind of incentives set up in the company, or just like people's mindset that they value stability a lot more, or maybe the stability will give them more rewards in the long term.
Yeah, stability and like teamwork, team contribution. It's not about much about like you personally. You probably
Yeah.
should have
Yeah.
like unique personality and trying to stand out. You should try to like blend in the bigger like community or team and contribute as
Right. Yeah. But don't you think that's also very Chinese? Like Chinese culture is also like that. Like you don't matter, and it's the collective's interest.
I think nowadays it feel less like that. Maybe like the social media like 小红书 or something like that has really urged like young people to have their own personalities. Like here it's more like by default, you shouldn't like try to be that different. Like like one example is like when we look at Japanese manga or anime, there is amazing like high school students wearing like cute uniforms,
Yeah.
skirts. But that's the way actually they eliminate like personality, right? You have to be like the same. You shouldn't wear your own clothes. You shouldn't have your own style, things like that. And they are educated that way since they're like in elementary school.
Right.
There are a lot of pros and cons that I see. Pros would be like that everyone values teamwork. I think Japan is the only country where like within a team, the performance is higher than individuals. And then
Interesting.
when a lot of people follow the rules, a lot of things are like actually can be easily get done. And the trust is there because you know that like others will follow the rules as well. And so I think that actually creates a lot of like safe space like mentally as well.
But the thing is, you got to trust the rules. If the person who sets the rules is an idiot, you're not going to like everything else is just a waste of time, right?
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like I struggle with the logics of how things can be done because maybe those things are like set like 50, 30 years ago and no one tried to change that. And changes can happen really slowly in Japan, right? So that's why sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'll try to be patient and be more like a local.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to constantly watch yourself. And in fact, actually, I have a lot of friends from my junior high school and just family friends who they study. I think 50% of people who I grew up with, they all study Japanese for some reason. It's probably because, the part of China I'm from in Hangzhou is very close
It's
to
because,
Japan.
yeah.
Yeah, and we share a lot of like similar culture and cuisine actually. And they loved Japanese culture. They're like fascinated by it from a very young age. So I probably know a ton of people who went to Japan for university. And guess what? I think out of that 50, 100 people, like there's probably only two left in Tokyo. Like all of them came back to China because they just can't stand the corporate culture there. And they told me that, okay, so I still remember this one guy who told me, he said that in Japan, a bridge is there 50 years ago and the bridge will still be there 50 years after. And it just won't change, right? And they just don't like it. And I think that especially if you grew up again in China, come from a culture where change happen all the time, it just feels like a stagnation, right? When you're staying in a culture that doesn't change.
Yeah. Sometimes there are like small struggles here and there. One thing that I could compare Japan with China and Singapore again is the digitalization, right?
Mm.
In China, like nowadays, I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't like nowadays, but like now you can get a lot of things done in like mini programs. You don't even need to download a new app and everything is like synced.
Again, context here, meeting programs are the programs in WeChat. So you just need to download WeChat and you can get almost everything done on WeChat without downloading an extra app on top of it.
Yeah, you don't need to go to a million websites, register and all. Like, by the way, I feel like registering a new account on the Japanese websites can sometimes like be a headache because you need to fill in so much information, your full name, your address, your postcode, blah blah blah, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like recently, I'm moving to a new place from like a district in Tokyo to another district in Kanagawa. I have to like go to the old district to register my move out. And this and that, and then I need to go to the new place to register, like move in, that like, because the system are not synced, right? So like I have to do it like twice so that the
Right.
address is here. They will send all the mails to here, and all the insurance or benefits will go along well with this new district. And then I need to inform my bank. I need to inform my company that I'm changing the address.
Yeah, yeah. Because nobody's talking to each other, it seems like. Because in China, I mean, sure, it's one party, and everything's centralized, right? So like all the information, they have your information anyway. So as a result of that, and also everybody knows it, not like you have privacy anyway, just because the government knows everything about you. So they control the information and they make sure the system talk to each other, right? So the bank talks to the insurance company and all these infrastructures down already at the very top level. So as a result, one advantage it has is to benefit its users. So the user doesn't have any friction when they're using different products. But it seems like in Japan, like obviously that's not the case. And also on top of that, it seems like Japanese people are very detail oriented. So do they not have a centralized system? You also needed to fill out 10,000 different things every single time while you just wanted to on board.
Yeah, it's funny. I think in China I don't have a file folder, because everything you can get like a digital copy. But here, like big file folder for all my receipts and all kinds of papers.
Yeah. Seems like it's like something that's going back in time. So I have two more questions left. Very quick. You've worked across Chinese startups, Airbnb, and also Indian startups, and now in Japan, a global team. What's one work culture belief that you had to unlearn?
The challenge is like, how can I keep the speed while providing more clarity, right? Because in China, like a lot of times it became a little bit chaos because no one had a clarity. Why are we doing this? Why do we have to speed up? Why do we have had this deadline? Like all things that is not very well explained because it's like a single culture. Like everyone is mostly still like Chinese, and there are a lot of like unspoken like understanding, but like we emphasize speed over like quality. Sometimes that can happen.
Yeah.
Like global team, I think clarity is very, very, very important, right? Like maybe I understand in my culture is different from my Japanese coworkers' understanding of things. So like have that clarity just become like more important. So like unlearn the speed and shift to clarity a bit more.
Yeah, well, because again, in China, and I think that, in a lot of places where maybe you have like a lot more, I guess, like homogeneous workforce that you just decide, it's like, especially in the Chinese culture, I think, first of all, like people there, they're not very good at communication. Like communication is an aspect where Chinese people just suck, right? And they'll be like, look at each other, you know what I do. Like they'd rather to just let you 意会, which is like let you get it yourself, like as if we have some kind of like telepath going down, then explain and sit down with you and make sure you understand. And also there's this top-down culture where, like the boss says whatever, and then we'll just need to fulfill the boss's wish, right? So I don't think it's very helpful. I think that's also one of the aspects that they struggle when Chinese companies try to go global, is that like they completely underestimate how important that communication is. And the boss themselves also don't understand. Like they're just like, okay, like, but this thing doesn't tie to KPI. This thing doesn't tie to results. So why is that important? But then without communication, like nothing can be achieved, right? But in the meantime, they're also really bad at it. So it's like they need to like discard their ego to be like, oh, let me look into what I can improve. And it's also very counterintuitive for them, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a skill that I learned a lot when I was in Airbnb, because I need to work with the China team, the APAC team, and the team in San Francisco, right? Everyone wanted to hear different stories, and you have to like speak the right thing to the right people to get things done.
Yeah. Okay, great. So last question for you is, what does success mean to you now? And how has that definition changed in the past 5 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes I feel like I try to keep redefine my own success, but in the past it was more like external, right? It was more about like title, salary, companies that you join, what kind of like style you have. It's very external. It's more about like what you show to others. But now it feels more like quieter, like more internal. It's more about like how I manage my own life. It's more about like how I feel my days are going every day? Can I have that sense of happiness and freedom of saying no to things? Like when we were younger, we had no right to say no to anything. And I
You
think as
can't.
more and more experience, more and more older, like that ability to say no to things actually more important, right? That means you
Yeah.
start off and people around you a lot better,
Yeah.
more clarity in your mind about a lot of things.
Yeah. Because when you're saying no to other things and other people, you're saying yes to yourself, right? And whatever you think is important.
Yeah, you start to understand what really matters and what doesn't, you know. I think that's a very good like status of like being success to myself, just to have that renewed, refreshed clarity again and again, and have that self-learning and again and again.
Yeah.
That will get me somewhere. That looks more like external access someday.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the shift? Was there a defining moment where you had that shift? Like what happened that you shift from there to here?
I think it was COVID. That really changed me. During COVID, I got a depression a little bit. And I was like, wow, nothing means anything.
Mm.
A lot of things you used to enjoy, right? And then you have to like establish that. And part of what I did was to move to Yunnan. I feel like maybe like changing the environment will help with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that did, like seeing mountains every day. And you just start to realize like, oh, us as human beings were so small. We're like being on the earth.
Yeah, yeah. Because you look at the mountains in Yunnan, there's a lot of them, right, in Yunnan, where you're like, wow, like these mountains been here for thousands of years, or like, I don't know, tens of
Yeah,
thousands of years. Yeah.
they're the best teachers of being like resilient, right? And that's us. Like we go up and down in our personal lives, and we're always in the learning progress of that. So I think like like really important topic for me personally, and I think achieving this more internal success is like how I would like define.
Yeah. So this is something I ask everyone, very quick and easy, filling the gap for me. So the sentence goes, I'm proud of myself because.
I'm proud of myself because I go hiking alone.
What? Why? Why? I mean, I get it, I guess, but but why? Why did you pick that?
I realized when people don't do that actually. So I like the context is that I will go hiking almost every weekend during summer
Yeah.
in Japan, and I will like hike high mountains between like 2,000 to 3,000 meters.
Oh, wow.
I go by myself. Sometimes there were like dangerous, but most of the time it was safe. So I'm actually very proud of myself achieving that because work-wise, again, you all have a lot of other competitors who have joined like great company, exit whatsoever, right? But I think,
Yeah.
and this is something I'm proud of myself because I think it's mentally and physically challenging. And
Yeah. Okay, so I think that what you're trying to say is that it's a challenge. So first of all, like it's a challenge where you feel like you're very much in control of, but it's also a challenge for yourself. And yeah, I mean, you are right. Okay, first of all, I understand why now you want to leave Singapore because we don't have mountains like
yeah.
that, right? They're just hills. And secondly, is that it's not just a challenge, it's just like it takes a lot of courage when you're there by yourself and you don't have any help, and you can easily be like anything can happen. And society also tells, especially girls, right, don't do these things, like especially Asian girls, these are dangerous, like don't do them. And but you're doing this anyway, and you're only doing this for yourself, and you probably feel very fulfilled by the time that you've conquered that hardship, not just physically, but also mentally.
Yeah, a lot of times I feel like when you live a fulfilling life, that means you also have exciting challenges ahead, like personal challenges, right? So like
You're looking forward to, yeah.
yeah, hiking those high mountains are the personal challenges I said. Something that's like not like climbing Mount Everest, where you can only do like probably once in your life or never. Like smaller but still challenging challenges will really add some spice to your life and make you look forward to what's next.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you so much for being on the show. If this conversation sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're building a more true life, not just more impressive, we would love to hear your story.
Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Asian Rebel Club and join our newsletter for more ways to connect. Link in the description. Until next time.